Good morning. The Ranter is back to go in yet another rambling diatribe of the news of the day. And, it's pretty much the same bit of news, despite the attempts to change the subject. This is the continuing saga of President Donald Trump and his involvement, his reaction, his acknowledgement or lack of acknowledgement of the Epstein files and the activities or whatever he could be involved with or not involved with concerning Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell or anything else of this particular matter. You know, sometimes you see these situations where, depending upon the reaction of the person of a particular issue or matter, that seems to lend credence to the theories that could be conspiracy, but could lead to theories towards whether or not a person is involved in certain activities or not. I'm being really vague here, but like I have said in previous videos how it's likened to people's suspicions of Trump during Russiagate. What he could have done or would not have done or have had an agreement with the Russians concerning the 2016 election, and if there was any, agreement between the two to try to meddle with the election. The reason why I'm linking these two together at this moment is because in the same type of way, Donald Trump doesn't really help himself in alleviating suspicions. Like, if he just said that, Vladimir Putin was a bad guy, that the things that he's done against, say, his political rivals or members of his press that somehow turned up getting poisoned or having this strange Russian phenomena of gravity being so bad in Russia that people just fall out of windows out of the blue for no apparent reason. That, Trump, however, saying, well, we do bad things too. That kind of conversation, or the perception of his preference of Putin and Russia during that time frame, especially him saying, Russia, if you're listening, get involved, then look for the emails of Hillary Clinton and so forth, and subsequently the DNC gets hacked by Russian IP hackers. That it doesn't help the idea that he had nothing to do with anything, that there was no connection one way or another between Trump and Russia. So the theory progresses. The same thing with the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Because instead of just either releasing everything that they have or being solid in their response about it and moving on, that would all probably just make people think, oh, we're just going through the motions, like previous administrations who don't really talk about that stuff. But he didn't do that. He got reelected in 2024 with his ally MAGA influencers on podcasts and the like supporting him in his presidential bid by claiming that he would release the Epstein files, that they would get to the bottom of the Epstein files, because they hung their hopes and their eagerness on that any information about Epstein, his child raping with him and his buddies, would lead to implications of Democrats involved in it. namely the Clintons and so forth. And it got to the point where, he did get President Trump being President Trump again, got elected, and the issue was brought up about Epstein, and his administration, Pam Bondi, says, well, I have the files right on my desk. And people like Alina Habba, the Trump lawyer, would go on to these Trump-friendly news sites and say, we're going to release the names. It's going to be explosive. And then nothing happened. I chalk this up to what I call the 3Ds. In the first D would be denial. Second D be deflection. Third D, distraction. Denial, the easiest one. I think that's probably knee-jerk, especially for people like Trump. Deny that there's any involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, that they barely know each other, that he was friends, way back when, but then they had a falling out, and this and that. Deny of any involvement whatsoever in that. Deny ever going to the island. Deny his name is in the file. Deny that the Epstein file exists. Deny that there is nothing in the Epstein files. And then say that it's a hoax, that it was made by Democrats. Deny, deny, deny. Okay. Then comes the deflection. As part of that rattling off I just did, of like this being a Democratic hoax. Deflect. Well, Democrats did it. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's no Epstein file. No. But Bill Clinton, went to the island 28 times. How do we know this without there being an Epstein file? I don't know. And stuff like that is still being slipped into the ethers here. They were going to have this big dinner at J.D. Vance's house, Vice President J.D. Vance, for those who forget that the existence of J.D. Vance at all. They were going to have this big meeting at his house with many of the high-level Trump officials to address their continuing Epstein problem in the Trump administration and the MAGA movement as a whole. And then the official word is that they kind of canceled the dinner, or that the dinner never really happened. That was just fake news coming out of this and that. But then J.D. Vance then offers up, Epstein did have a lot of left-wing influencers and powerful Democrats involved. Left-wing millionaires. I don't know. Deflect. And then distraction. And what was the line of distractions that we saw since Trump whined that, why do people keep talking about the Epstein files? Epstein's dead. Why does it still matter? Look at all the wonderful things that we did. What about the flood? Let me give a shit about the flood in Texas for about 20 seconds because I want to use that as a distraction to what's going on with the Epstein files that I don't want you talking about. I want you talking about the flood. The flood. Until I don't want you talking about the flood because the resources that I could have sent to Texas for the flood, namely the National Guard and military assistance, I was sending over to LA because I wanted to, show that I'm just going to be a hard ass against protest. And protect my precious whittle Fabergé egg ICE agents that we can't possibly see their faces. No, as they drag people out of Home Depot. Distract. So, we had that. So, well, what about Texas? What about the flood? And then, I'm taking over LA. I'm liberating. Distraction. And then, what was the other distractions? Because we kept talking about Epstein throughout all this. Oh, let's bomb Iran. Try to start a war with Iran. Not really doing it, though, because, it seemed big and bad, and we all were like, oh! when it happened. And then the damage result of that being they just delayed things. It kind of reminded me of the first Trump administration when he decided to punish the Syrian leader Assad for his use of his own military to grind up the buildings of his own people that were dissident. And he got so mad about it that he put holes in an empty airfield that they made sure was free of munitions, certainly free of Russian personnel, because we wouldn't want any of them to hit. For God's sake, don't. But yeah, they put holes into a Syrian airfield, the same airfield that they used to bomb their own people. A few hours later, that airfield was back up and running, and missions were continuing to go. Gee, that is somewhat similar to what happened in Iran, which is why the Iranian response to our attack of them was as ineffectual as our attack on Iran in the first place. It was for show. It was distraction. The little political theater afterwards was just a distraction, and it only lasted, what, a week? Then Epstein was still there. So, oh gosh darn, what are we going to do now? So, during this time frame, Big Beautiful Bill came and went. All the other drama that he want people to talk about, that he was going to demand that they return the name of the Washington Capitals into the Washington Commanders, the Washington Commanders back into the Washington Redskins, because changing the name back was very, very, very important. Please talk about this instead of Epstein. Please, 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 please talk about this, or talk about the continual assault on anything non-white in any aspects of our life by going after DEI and everything. But don't talk about Epstein. And everything, even up to now, even the taking over of Washington, federalizing it so that he can put his plastic army men and his toy tanks in the streets of Washington, because Big Balls just got himself beaten up by two 15-year-olds, one being a girl. Yeah, he calls the National Guard on DC for that, but not for January 6th. Yeah. But again, distraction. If you watched anything of the Trump administration from the previous administration into now, you would understand my opinion on how he does things. This is nothing new. That something he does is completely, utterly awful, that reaches a critical mass, that before he has to deal with it, he will do something else as awful that will try to draw attention. He wants people to look at that while this thing disappears. He wants his involvement with Epstein and people's opinions on Epstein to disappear, including going back to the soup of the 3Ds: denial, deflection, and distraction, which included, let's get the DOJ to go after Obama and Hillary over Obama's involvement with Russiagate in 2016. Now, why I'm not flinching about that is actually kind of ironic, because when they're accusing Obama, former president, or President Obama, of treason for his involvement in Russiagate, that even if it's true, Obama enjoys the same immunity of official acts as president as Donald Trump does if he does any shitty thing while president. So we know that this DOJ investigation of Obama and Hillary Clinton and James Comey and anybody else, the Easter Bunny, Where's Waldo, goes nowhere. That can't go anywhere. So they're just doing it for the distraction and the deflection. Which means they will say anything. They can. They're absolutely allowed to say anything. They are allowed to say that Obama committed treason, as Tulsi Gabbard claims. He committed treason for his involvement or his activities involved in pushing Russiagate. True or not. They will go ahead and make a big media investigation about this to make sure Fox News and Newsmax and OAO or whatever the hell that one, or Christian Mingle are all saying this and get their opinion people on it and do the spin about it. But they know it will go nowhere because of the same immunity that Obama shares as Trump shares. In fact, Trump, in his Truth Social comment about this, because when they came out with it, is that Obama should thank Trump for them clarifying by the Supreme Court of the presidential immunity. So this chalks it up to they can say whatever they like and they're not going to do shit. But again, all of that is distraction to what's going on underneath. And why is this big campaign of distraction going on? Was that back in May, Pam Bondi, according to, I think, the Wall Street Journal, did happen to say that Trump's name was in the Epstein report. You know, that Epstein report that was on her desk but doesn't exist, that doesn't have anything about bribery or anything else involved in it, so that we should stop talking about it. Except, of course, unless we want to say that only Bill Clinton was involved in that, then yeah, let's talk about that. But again, as I started this whole thing, Trump's actions or reactions does not lend credence to the idea that he's not involved in anything, that he isn't afraid of anything involved with the Epstein files. To make a big show of that innocence, or that wanting to get to justice, they sent Todd Blanche, one of Trump's personal lawyers, now part of the DOJ, part of like a second or third tier in the leadership of the DOJ, to have a nice, polite, delightful chat with Ghislaine Maxwell, who was serving her 20-year sentence in prison for her involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, one of the only people that is actually prosecuted. To get information out of her, to get her insight, to see what's inside, what can be gleaned from Ghislaine. Kind of rhymes. Now, I'm glad to hear at least a lot of the people who have doubts of them in the MAGA orbit that have been outraged at the whole Epstein debacle is not buying this as they are expecting them to buy it, because sometimes you have to hit the wall of logic. Ghislaine Maxwell is just talked with the, what was it, not the acting director, but like the sub-director of the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, who was also a personal lawyer of Donald Trump. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was a longtime friend and associate of Donald Trump. An associate meaning that she and her family knew the Trumps for decades, including Trump's father, through her father, social circles and so forth, she's talking with a DOJ representative who represents Donald Trump not only as part of the government but as was once his personal lawyer. And they were going to have a discussion, or they had a discussion upon who else was involved with Jeffrey Epstein. And she says that Trump was never involved. Right. She says this to Trump's former personal lawyer, who was working for Trump's administration's Department of Justice. And she then gets moved to Camp Texas Toast in Texas, Camp Bryan. A much more cushier prison camp than the prison she was staying in for her conviction in her involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, namely her being a groomer and facilitating of Jeffrey Epstein getting to rape little girls and his associates. And let's not get this twisted here, folks. She not only procured these young women, these young girls as young as 13 and 14, for Jeffrey Epstein's appetite, not only was she grooming them, conditioning them to service Jeffrey Epstein and those that would enjoy them as party favors, but according to victim testimony, she was involved in the actual acts of molestation and rape. To the point that one of the victims' testimony was that she disrobed the girl and was involved in the sexual acts with Jeffrey Epstein and her. She is a pedophile, no different than Jeffrey Epstein, who was supposed to be serving out her 20-year sentence, gets moved to Camp Bryan, and because of the move to Camp Bryan, a couple interesting things happened with that. One being is that in order to justify the move to a lower security facility of a prison, they removed the sexual offense off of her jacket. She's no longer a sexual offender. Oh, and better yet, now we find out that since she's at Camp Bryan, she gets to leave the prison on a work release. What kind of job that she has now? And who the fuck would hire her? But she gets to leave the prison, leave the nice little camp to, be an Avon lady? Sell insurance? Be a DoorDash driver? Rich socialite lady that enjoys the little girls like her man does? And all this under the Trump auspices of the Trump administration trying to get down to the truth, to hunt down the names of all the other pedophiles, except for those that they don't want to mention, like Trump. I can't imagine why people doubt the sincerity of this whole thing. I can't imagine that. And it's very sad that we once again, as people who are Trump critics, or people who are emotionally, physically sick of this whole issue involving Jeffrey Epstein and what he did to these children, to these girls, and who amongst him got involved with enjoying these little girls in grotesque ways, that we have to throw out the caveat that, oh well, if Bill Clinton is there, that we're gonna flinch, and then we're gonna say but. No, we have to throw out the caveat that says, no, Bill Clinton's involved, fuck him too. And any Democrat, any left-leaning, this is not fucking politics. We have to continue to say this. Because they go out there and says, oh yeah, well, no, obviously Jeffrey Epstein was giving these party favors to these left-leaning socialites and millionaires and politicians and movie stars and whatever. No. See, someone pointed this out instantly in kind of a joking manner, is that of how, if liberals are going to flinch or be hypocritical if it was Bill Clinton in these. Bill Clinton could very well be in these. But it is funny how they try to say in the manner that was said that, oh yeah, we would be so upset with Bill Clinton because then we would burn all our Bill Clinton shirts, Bill Clinton swag, Bill Clinton flags. Remember during his presidency how we talked about Bill Clinton's vision? How everything was involved, everything in the aspects of our political policies during his administration, we all had to mention his name, and anytime he was in the room, we have to genuflect and say how brilliant and what a stable genius he is. That anything that happens, even horrible things that happen, is okay because it's part of his vision. Yeah, none of that shit happened because that is the cultish behavior of people who say that about Donald Trump, that they say today. No, the caveat, we have to make the caveat of saying is, yeah, if a Democrat's name is in the file, fuck them, investigate them, see if they're involved or not. If they also are evilly corrupt to abuse children because they could, because they're powerful. And this is, again, goes back to what I have said in the last couple of videos, is that it's not really about politics. It's about power. It's about the power to do anything because you can. One of the things that Donald Trump, or at least his administration, has said about not releasing the full Epstein list, not the unredacted list, is because he didn't want people who are innocent to be hurt, to be harmed, to be misconstrued. No. See, here's the thing about investigations. True investigations does two things. Proves the guilt of the people that you're investigating, if it proved true that they were doing the shit that they're investigating about. And two, exonerating, proving their innocence, proving that they were innocent. People talk about, because they want to do this whataboutism about previous presidents, especially Biden, is that, oh yeah, well they Jeffrey Epstein, they could have released the stuff then. Why didn't Biden release the stuff then? First of all, a lot of the Epstein material was being clogged up, being prevented to be released. And what little was released under Biden, including the flight logs, where we found the laundry list of names that were on Epstein's plane. Surprising names. And I'm talking about like politicians, talking about Donald Trump or Bill Clinton, talking about John Glenn, former astronaut and senator John Glenn. The Pope was on his plane once. Movie stars were on his plane. Various people, doctors, lawyers, millionaires were on the plane. Could all of them be pedophiles? Who knows? You know why we don't know? Because no one wants to investigate. Investigate it. Find out. When someone gets exonerated and vindicated, see, the thing is, it's supposed to be that proves it, wipes the slate clean for them, and they move on. Donald Trump claims that he is vindicated and exonerated in any of his legal entanglements if a trial gets thrown out, or a trial doesn't even start. It doesn't, even though the result isn't proving that he's innocent or not. But if it isn't totally negative, he's like, I'm totally exonerated. It was all a hoax. It was all a hoax. No. Who are these people to be protected? Investigate all of them. Left, right, center, millionaires, celebrities. How is it that it was okay to do the House Un-Americans activity in the 50s, go after Hollywood for the red threat, go after actors and writers, political thinkers? That's fine, that's cool. Drag them in front of TV and humiliate them for the search of communism. Communism was worse than pedophilia. Communism is worse than holding a girl down, forcing yourself inside her while she screams no. That's fucking worse than that. Really? Who needs to be protected of this? The powerful. The powerful. Left, right, or center. Doesn't matter about politics. It matters about power. The power to do anything you want because you can. Why not have a House Un-Americans activity style committee, commission against backroom, high tower pedophilia? Some even claim that Jeffrey Epstein, the reason why he was so influential and why we can't really release the list of these people, was because this was a honeypot, that he was part of Mossad. Yeah, so we can't mention any of that because that is all spy shit to go after bad guys. If your governmental secret service agency is conducting a honeypot and your honeypot is offering up little girls to be sexually abused, raped, and that was successful. First of all, what the fuck is wrong with your mind? Secondly, none of these people who fell for the honeypot should be oh gosh darn, they got tricked. Someone offers you a little girl to have sex with, honeypot or not, you are a fucking perverted dirtbag. It doesn't matter what influence or what bribes are being made or what blackmail is being done. You walked into that party. Why should we be protecting them? Why should this be shh? And I don't know if it's a byproduct of what's going on with Epstein, how people are twisting themselves into knots in the MAGA movement or in the Republican Party, that some people are trying to lower the age of consent to what, like 14? So it becomes something that you can mitigate. How old men, and with Ghislaine Maxwell, a mature woman, is eagerly wanting to and achieving and having forceful, non-consensual, pedophilic sex with little 13 or 14-year-olds. So that becomes legal, so therefore retroactively that's all kosher and then we shouldn't really be talking about it. In Utah, in order to help some family involved with a scandal of having sex with a 13-year-old, an official in Utah is trying to lower the age of consent to 13. I don't know where the religious component is for that, because when you think of Utah, you think knee-jerk for Mormonism. I don't know where that is. Polygamy, yeah. Children, really? Ew. We're getting on the road of them pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. The story is starting to spin that Ghislaine Maxwell, she's just another victim, isn't she? She was victimized and conditioned to go out there and find little girls to groom and condition so that they could be victimized. It's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle of abuse, and she is only a victim. So really, should she really be punished? Oh no, let's not punish her. Let's pardon her. We'll put her part of the Trump administration. We'll make her part of the staff. There should be nothing wrong with investigating. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, anyone involving little girls. Investigate them, prove that they are involved, prove that they're not involved. And if you prove them not to be involved, then under the light of God, exonerate them, saying, yes, they were on the flight list. No, they weren't involved in any shit. We have proof of that. Again, no one is expecting this Epstein list to be a list of people and the sexual deviant acts that they've done with various victims. But we are expecting this to be a list, much like the flight logs, of people who spent time with Epstein. And those are the type of things we have to ask why. This is one of those behind the scene, breakups. This is why Me Too was very visceral when it comes to people like Harvey Weinstein. Only you have to say this is worse because this is about little girls. Sexual abuse is awful in every shade that it comes in. So let's not lighten the load of what happened to young ladies or mature ladies who went through Hollywood or went through any level of influence of powerful people who had to comply with bullshit in order to succeed in their lives. None of it's good. But even in the levels of shit in hell, fucking a little girl when you're an old fucking man, that's wrong. That's worse. People flinch when a older actor or an older rock star, gets to go on the red carpet with some 18-year-old or 20-year-old girl. They'll smirk and they'll talk about, Peter Pan syndrome. That they can do it because they're rich. They do it because they can. That same mentality of that barely socially tolerable act of dating someone or being married to someone officially, someone so young, for obvious reasons. But the same because they can is the same because they can for the not tolerable acts of using and abusing little girls. Because they can. Because the powerful can. Donald Trump is a powerful person. Donald Trump is protecting other powerful people. Donald Trump does not want the party to end. He doesn't want to be implicated in that party, the party that he was involved with. Once again, it's his own actions, it's his own words. It is the actions of his own administration involved in Jeffrey Epstein and the file, or the file exist or not exist. that is still continuing to stoke and churn this horror out for people to wonder about. It's to the point where anything he does now is a distraction. No matter how horrific they are in their own right, the one we would be talking about if there wasn't a Jeffrey Epstein thing underneath it. But since we know the Jeffrey Epstein thing is not going away, that the issue involving child rape, or whether Donald Trump was involved or not, if his name is involved or not in the list, is always going to make anything else that happens seem like a distraction. And that's not going to go away. No one on the list should be protected. No one should look at the list, see a name that they like, and go, oh, well, let's just get this little black market and just go beep, 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 and redact it. Everyone should be investigated. I don't care if it's Bill Clinton or Donald Trump or Robert Kennedy Jr. or Stephen Hawking or whomever is on the list, or at least on the flight logs. And we can't have political theater and just assume that that's all there is. I mean, the Republicans are going to convene, or they're going to claim, at least James Comey, or whatever the hell his name is, the guy who was all hell-bent on Hunter Biden, then found really nothing, except for he just spent his time whining about it on Fox. They're going to subpoena Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in their involvement with Epstein. That's great, but they're not the only people. Again, if you can do a House Un-Americans activity involving pedophilia, great, I'm all for it, but you have to do more than just those who are politically expedient for your side. It has to be everybody. This is not about politics. This is about power, and this type of power needs to be broken. If anyone is unwilling to do this, Democrat or Republican, they need to be called out. They need the finger pointed at them. They need to be shamed. I don't know what the statutes of limitation are on involving these kind of acts, especially decades after the fact. But if you can't find that these people can be criminally liable anymore, they can still be shamed, they can still be treated as pariahs, they can still have it hang over their heads socially, verbally, for the rest of their natural lives. And don't take like the very little breadcrumbs that they want to throw at you as they're trying to do something. Like them trying to get the Ghislaine Maxwell transcript of her grand jury. As if that's doing something. They're not letting us have it. What are they trying to hide? Fuck you. You all have not only have the list, you all have all the information of Jeffrey Epstein that doesn't require a court to give you approval. You can just show now, right now, but you don't. And we're going to continue to wonder why. But the breadcrumbs of like, oh, we did this, or we had an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell, and we gave her 100 names to talk about them, but she said, oh, Trump wasn't involved, so obviously the woman who was a groomer, facilitator of little girls to Jeffrey Epstein, who got involved in the pedophilia that herself partook in, who perjured herself twice in court cases involving this, why should she lie to Todd Blanche, who was a personal attorney of Donald Trump, who now serves in the Department of Justice in the Trump administration? I can't imagine why. she obviously has to be telling the truth, that obviously Trump couldn't be involved. I've been wanting to do this for the past few weeks, with real life issues happening that sort of like derailed my enthusiasm for most things. Once again, I can't take this presidential administration seriously, and I can't take anybody who takes it seriously. I'm sort of letting you marinate here for a moment as I'm thinking. I often wonder, when it involves people who are so devoted to Donald Trump, that I've never seen that level of devotion, and I never demonstrated such cultish loyalty to Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Bill Clinton. I don't think I've seen, maybe since Reagan, or perhaps this is even beyond Reagan, really, of the near deifying that people go about when involving Donald Trump. I often wonder, because of that, people take their support of this man so personally that they would they believe they would be have personal responsibility for whatever act he does as president, or act he did outside of being president, because they still support him, if that reflects upon them. If Donald Trump is proven, I don't know how, with him and his DOJ at the wheel, it's more likely that any Epstein material that would have his name on it would be in those burn bags that they claim they found, Hillary Clinton material from Russiagate in, that they were in burn bags. Well, shouldn't those burn bags be burning with that material in the burn bags, in that secret room that Kash Patel found? But by the same token, I wouldn't trust this DOJ to be holding any material that would have Donald Trump's name on it involving Jeffrey Epstein. Well, if there be seriously some people watching over their shoulder, I would imagine that, systematically they'd be burning the shit out of anything that has his name on it. Which was actually a theory of people had concerning the Epstein list and so forth, of how people were trying to redact his name out of it. But if you're a supporter of Donald Trump, you still consider yourself a supporter of Donald Trump, where does that devotion come from if you have to have that conversation? Well, I know he's probably a pedophile, but at what point does the slavish devotion to your political ideology finally take a back seat to reality, to logic, to consciousness, to morality? People can ask that both ways if they want to. That's fine. people dismiss his involvement in January 6th. People who have relatives or wives or husbands who were undocumented, who have their undocumented mates or documented family taken away by ICE, and still they claim to be loyal to Donald Trump. Where is the line? Where is the throw up your hands and just say game over, I'm done playing? One thing I get frustrated with is this continuing act, especially among Democrats, of this shock, or any Trump critic who wants to act shocked whenever Trump does shit. Oh no, he did this. He said that. Oh no. Chalk up to the fact that he is going to say that. He is going to act that way. Move on. But we need to stop with this paralyzing. We stop like standing still and focusing on this one thing and one thing only. Have the nuance to see all the myriad of bullshit that's going on. To know what is a distraction and what is really important. Taco, Trump always chickens out, is not a new concept. Any major policy issue he had in the first administration through the second administration, he will talk a big game. He'll go right up to the line and then he go, you know what? You're all supposed to handle it. You go handle it. I'll be over here. I have nothing to do with this. Because he doesn't want the fucking responsibility. If it goes south, it goes wrong, he had nothing to do with it. If it's somehow successful, his name is all over it. That's a coward. You stand there and defend something that you believe in, and if it goes wrong, you still stand there. And you say, you know what, I believed in this, it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but god damn it, I fought for it. What gets lost in the noise of the Jeffrey Epstein issue is the victims. People who dare to play lip service about the victims, but still support Donald Trump. Who do not feel the intellectual curiosity of his involvement in it. Certainly wouldn't want to have a conversation about the one now lady who in the 90s sued him or was drawing him up for rape charges twice, with him involving Jeffrey Epstein and her. I don't get it. I don't get this blinding loyalty. Other than the theory that because they fought so hard and they so wanted to own the libs and were so politically paralyzed in their partisanship, that if he goes down, that must mean something about them. If he's a pedophile, then I supported him, so I must support pedophilia. This is simplistic thinking. No. You don't support pedophiles. You don't support Donald Trump because he's a pedophile. You're not saying, I don't believe even his more avid hardcore supporters is really thinking in their heads, as long as he owns the libs, I don't mind if he fucks a little girl. I don't think anyone thinks that. But I do think that they worry upon the other people, the opinions of their friends and families, and perfect strangers, the people on the internet, people on the street. If they're such an avid Trump supporter with a flag waving outside, that maybe it does reflect upon them. So instead of considering the fact that maybe their support is misplaced or their political opinion upon this particular person might be wrong, they double down, as they've seen in many other issues. Like somebody who loses a spouse to ICE because that spouse happens to be undocumented. And they still go, oh, well, I'm still loyal to Trump. My flag is still out there. Oh, my poor wife, but she should have known better. Oh, well. Doctor, I'm seeing spots. I'm seeing spots, Doc. Can you help me? I'm seeing spots. I mean, I can't help it. I'm seeing spots, Doctor. Oh, excuse me. I'm cured. That's just how some people act. They don't take the responsibility of the fact that their glasses might have spots on them. They think it's a completely medical condition of their eyes. Someone wipes away instead of going, oh, I'm sorry, I should have wiped my glasses. No, I'm cured. That's the level of personal responsibility some people take or not take or have no action in. I'm rambling, but this is a rant. Point is, I needed to vent this out into the void. To continue the saga of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and all the peripheries going about it, and what we're doing or what we're not doing about it, and what Congress's opinion upon this, upon making this a political football to try to go after the Clintons as opposed to, I don't know, dealing with a person that's in the White House that he and his administration is playing whack-a-mole with the Epstein material. I thought about this. How is this any different than the Catholic Church hiding pedophile priests that commit acts, but because they go into confessional and they have that priest penitent confessional seal, that they don't take the pedophilic priest away, or they don't send him off to jail or get him arrested. They move him to another parish. Whack-a-mole. They just move them around. Well, they're doing the same thing with Donald Trump's administration and the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Oh, we had binders. Let's hand the MAGA influencers binders of all this stuff. Yay! Nothing in it. Nothing that you already did not know to begin with. But now they're in binders. They're on Pam Bondi's desk. Oops! They don't exist. No, stop talking about it. It doesn't exist. It's a Democratic hoax. Talk about that. Talk about it being a Democratic hoax, but it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Even though Donald Trump's name was in it, they found out in May, doesn't exist. Redact. But it does exist. Obama made it. Obama made the Epstein list. So did Hillary Clinton. So did James Comey. They did. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, they were involved in 2016 too. Yeah. Distraction. Woo. Denial, deflection, distraction. 3 Ds. The ranter rants because incoherent ranting is what it's all about. Just one last moment on this. It doesn't matter if it's a honeypot. It doesn't matter if people were just being handed little children to have sex with because they want to bribe them. There's no one innocent except for the victims. There should be investigations. The powerful needs a reckoning. Every name should be investigated. And those investigations should prove their guilt or they're innocent. If they're guilty, prove it, run with it. If they're innocent, prove it, run with it. Fuck the politics. If Donald Trump is absolutely honest to God innocent, prove it. Exonerate him. But don't go in this hiding bullshit because of the precious politics or the political control. If you don't want the Republican Party tainted by this, then be as gung-ho in opening the investigations on everyone, not just the Clintons. If Democrats don't want to be tainted in this further, also push for the investigation and see where it goes from there. If you're unwilling to do any of this, either Republicans or Democrats, whoever are in power, then you are part of the fucking problem. These children, who now are young and mature ladies now, none of them matter. They're just political footballs to throw at each other as talking points, but they don't matter. The horror that they suffer through doesn't matter. And it'll just be business as usual for the powerful. And they will continue to do this. The Harvey Weinsteins and the Jeffrey Epsteins of this world, we are horrified by them because they're the ones we know about. Who knows how many more are out there that we don't know about, that gets away with this every single day, and who are laughing at the moral outrage because they are untouchable. They believe they're untouchable because governments protect them, celebrities protect them, their own fans protect them. And when they hold down someone crying, saying no, and they do what they're going to do to them, they'll do it because they can. The ranter rants. Because I can't.